All right, for this assignment, for this part of the assignment, you're supposed to take your vector drawings of these microscopic creatures and turn them into aesthetically pleasing, from just black and white kind of contour drawings to something that's filled with color. Apply these paths, color, and you should apply sort of a color fill. So right now, basically have a contour black line, fine, and we below in a template. If we look at our layers that we have, and on each of the artboards we have some different artwork, and this artwork that we're zoomed in on happens to be on artboard 5. Check that, and there's a references layer, images that you're tracing over on the references layer, and we can just double check that by showing and hiding that layer. These are dim, so if we double click, let me try it again, double on that reference layer, we can see it says dim images to 20%. This is a good idea so that we can see our artwork before you're doing any further editing on this. So like if I change that to 100%, well, it's really hard to see what you're doing. So definitely sure that you go in here and you make this any percentage that you want. I made it 20%. Really easy to see the drawing on top. All right, so let's take a look at how we could go about on drawing, how we would fit these kind of shapes with color. So if I click path and I drag that out, I can see that that's not a closed path. It's open path. A closed path would be one that comes around the last anchor point would come and join the first anchor point. And so if we're going to fill this object with color, the color fill is going to stretch the shortest route from the last anchor point to the first anchor point. So if we were to put that back and go ahead and try to fill that with color, this is the kind of result that we're getting. And this isn't really what we want because it's covering up some of this, it's covering the form of the creature. So what can we do to fix this? We have to see how this is constructed. So like if I click on that, I can see that's an open path. And if I click packet, I can see there's another open path. So how would we fill this with color? I mean, there's a couple options we could go about doing. One is we can join these paths together. So like if I was to select these two objects, these two also called objects, and log these away to see what's going on. So if we these away, we could see that if we were to select both of these and go to the object menu, path, and then join, not doing it. So why isn't it doing it? It actually did join down here, it looks like, didn't it? Let's see. Yeah, but it never filled in this top part. So I'm not exactly sure why. But what we could do, instead of using that tool, we could actually just manually go in here. We could go over to the pen tool, and we could click on one of these anchor points. This is an organic, living kind of a creature, so we make smoothly curving paths instead of angular paths. So let's go ahead and drag to make that kind of a smooth curve, and then let's bring this around to here, and then we can complete this. This. So something this looks right. Let's go back. Let's go and try again. Okay, so how would we go about filling these paths or these with color? If when we drag each one of these out, we can see that the paths, or at least most of them are, and we don't have a lot of control if we're going to fill to an open path. If, for example, if I'm like you have this creature, select this path, and I choose a fill, this is what we get. So we want to make sure that we are working with paths especially when we're thinking of applying fill to them. So now I'm just going to turn the reference image so we can really see what we're doing here and see what this drawing looks like. And what we have here is a couple of options in order to be able to create closed paths from these series of open paths here. So let's just take this, let's drag that. We can see by just dragging it away that it's an open path. And then if we drag this path away, okay, we can see that's also an open path. But we want to fill this kind of shape in here. So what I'm going to do is, just for demo purposes, I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to copy them by hitting Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. And then I'm going to choose Command V or Control V if you're on a PC. Command V on the Mac, Control V on a PC. And just drag those away so we can see we made a copy over here. Let's go ahead and just take these two paths and let's join them together manually by filling them in with another path. So I'm going to use the pen tool and I'm going to click on one of these end anchor points here on one of the paths, click and drag. The reason I'm clicking and dragging is so that I can drag out these anchor points so that I get a smoothly curving path. And then I'm going to come around and click on this other path so that I can join these together. So now I have one single path here. All right. However, it's still open on the bottom here, and we do have this kind of extra little appendage, and not exactly sure what's happening with this, but let's see. Oh, okay, I see. So this, again, it's not really a closed path. A closed path, you'd have to go back to the end anchor point. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shorten this one up. And let's go ahead and just modify this so that we can kind of bring this around. Let's see if I can. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this anchor point. And let's start from there. And let's go ahead and go to the pen tool and let's grab this anchor point. Click on that. Let's click and drag on it. Click and drag to bring out the handle and then come around. And this will be a corner point, so I'll just click on that. You see this little hollow circle that appears right next to the cursor? That means closing the path. All right, so now we have a closed path. So let's zoom at it. All right, so now what we have, click on one little part of this, a closed path, and if I go to fill this with color, it fills with color and I have control over it. Again, let's contrast this with this over here, and let's fill that with color. And you see what happens. Okay, so what I basically did, I took these two, another kind of little segment. I took two open paths and I joined them together to make one closed path. That was using the pen tool to just fill in those line segments where I named the two end anchor points of each together. So I dragged that away to do that. I mean, what we could do if we want to make it kind of easy with redrawing everything is I could start back. I could just make the stroke, and then I could send to the back. So I'm right clicking on my mouse, I'm bringing up this pop menu, go to arrange and select. All right, so now I've got this fill here, and what it really is, it's another shape. You see that? And these are the originals here. So let's, for this one, I guess what I would do on this is sort of open. How are we going to fill this? Where do we end the fill at? Because there's some open points here. What I'm going to do is like fill this whole area here, assuming this animal's body. What we have are all these separate line segments here that don't join together. What we could do is try to join these by, if I select this one and I select this next one, these are all separate, and then go to object and path and join. Did it join those together? Yeah, it did, but there's a couple anchor points in here. So here's the issue that I'm having. Let's go back. We've got these two separate paths that are overlapping each other, like that. And you see that if I select both of these, let's try to click and drag over both of them, you can see that they kind of touch each other, but two anchor points right here. So if I join this path, I get some stuff going on. Let's try that again. Object, path, join. And it makes like a second kind of a, anchor point sticking out of here. And then I get this weird stuff going on here. So like if I drag this anchor point, whoops, if I click on the anchor point and drag it, I'm getting all kinds of weird stuff. So in this case, what I would do is I would just delete that anchor point because it's an extra thing and it's causing some problems here. So you just, and it does change the shape of our path. We get this really pointed area. Well, we'll fix that in a little bit. I mean, what we could do is we could drag these anchor points and try to make that a little nicer. But the key here is to not use separate little segments of path, and when they're all put next to each other like this, how are you going to fill those, or when you're going to join these together? If you want to have clean contours here on the stroke, so we've got like these kind of overlaps and sort of awkward. But let's try to join these together too. See, these look like they're connected, but they're not. Let's see. These are just not, they're not connected there. So this really should have ideally been one continuous path instead of many smaller path segments. It's making very complex object here. So let's go ahead and try this again. I'm going to click both of these separate paths, go to Object, choose Join, and that's not working. So this is the problem that we have with this Join tool. Let me try to do the regular selection tool, see if that works. Path, Join. Yeah, no. So yeah, this isn't working very well for me. So what I do in this case is just manually take the pen tool and grab this anchor point, and where's the other one? Yeah, let me escape from this. Let me Command Z. Yeah. All right, so we've got these two separate paths here that we have to find the end anchor points for. Let's go ahead and do that. Come around and do that. And then we create kind of a smoother join there. I mean, this is getting really awkward. Something that we could do is go to the stroke menu. We could bring out this little options area. We could choose the caps. Right now, by default, it's like squared off like this. So we get these squared off caps. If we, and this creates pointed areas like this. If we do round caps, it doesn't even fix that. Yeah, it should. All right. Maybe the corner. Let's try round join. There we go. Okay. Round join, round caps. So we can play around with these stroke options that might help to make some of these look less awkward. Like we can play around with this. Maybe we want to make that a round cap. It looks more like an organic shape. Same with these. Maybe these all have round caps on them. It's a kind of a minor detail, but when you get some areas like this, it can make a big difference in how it looks. So yeah, in this case, this is kind of a complicated thing because all these are like separate little segments. If I was going to do this, if I was going to draw this creature, what I'd probably do is I would make one continuous path here. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to move it off to the side. Okay, and I'm going to show you how I would do it. Now you're going by these have kind of a, or these scan of vintage book illustration, not very to see, but I get the general outline here. Doesn't really matter where you start. I guess I'll start right here. And what I would do is would make one continuous path for this entire creature's body, for the main part of this entire creature body. And what I'm is clicking the mouse button, dragging out these handles that I can move, And if I have these handles, I've got a smoothly curving path. And I'm just using my own judge as far as like the contours thing because it gets a little confusing just based on the you're kind of trying to make it you're trying to get the basic shape down. You're not trying to every single little thing in there. All right. So now if I make a shape like that, where it's one closed path, it's a shape, it's kind of a shape, but it's made of there's points that I can control, and I can go back in here and I move these around. If I go into the selection tool, the white area, I can move these since I've dragged anchor points. I can manipulate and move around to make a smoothly curving path. Like right here, I've got a little bit of a up here. Maybe smooth that out just by moving anchor point, dragging the hand around. Here, I don't know, let's just try that. There's like an appendage coming out, but maybe that's make an open path and just do some sort of we'll see what I would do with that. Maybe let's just work on this and let's see what'll happen. Let's see what I do with that. All right, I'm just trying to make this as smooth as I can. The key is that you make a path and get it pretty close, but then you know that you can go back in here and refine this and make it look better. And that's the key. You don't want to think that the first time you put down the path, got to be exact. It's not going to be. At least the way I work, it's a lot easier to kind of in and then go back when you're working on that. Is this low quality? This kind of a real image is very pixelated and not very easy to see like what should be what. All right, so that looks pretty good. Good enough for the demo purpose anyway, right? And then this is that could be filled with color. And you have control over that color because it's a closed path. I also don't have to recreate it, fill it either, or have issues with trying to join paths together, and it gets really kind of complicated. So let me go ahead and make this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another closed path. I'm going to let's see, where should I start? I'm going to start like just inside of here, and you'll see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go about doing this the same way that I did the other one. Click and drag, click and drag. That's how you make smoothly curving path. Okay, and again, we're not making this perfect because look, the pixels it's totally imperfect. The whole one of the reasons that we would recreate something like this in vector graphics is to clean them up, because look how kind of call it dirty this with all these pixels. Okay, so I'm making math here, but now I'm going inside of the object that I just created. I'm just kind of doing it in sort of a rough way. We can just close. Oops, I missed that. Let's just close that off. Okay, so this doesn't look great, but look what we're going to do. I'm going object, and I'm going to fill it with color. And I'm going to select the second object, and you can see that since I created second, Illustrator is saying, okay, you created that second, it's going to sit on top of the object that you created previously. That way we can see it, even though we filled it. So let's go ahead and make this a different color. Like that. Okay, and then we're just going to go and right click on that, go to and go to send to back. And now we're starting to get this creature looking pretty much the way we want. Now there's some other things in here that we could do in a similar way. Now, of course, we can change the color of the strokes too. I mean, we could do all kinds of things with these. We can change the weight, and actually it's better when you're using the pen tool, it's generally easier to use if the stroke weight is skinnier, but you can always go back and you can change it. I mean, there's all kinds of options for you. I mean, that could look really cool. But for now, well, no, let's leave it that way. All right, so I've got these things back here, and I guess, there's different ways that I could do it, but why don't I sort of do what I was doing before? Is I'm overlapping this other shape, and I'm just gonna go and, oh yeah, when you're using the pen tool, you just kind of want to make the fill none and make the stroke something very, one point is okay, I guess, so that you can see what you're doing while you're drawing. All right, I'm gonna just sort of rough this in. Maybe you can pick up what I'm actually doing here. I'm just making a big shape, and I'm going to come around and clip. Now, it doesn't really matter too much what it looks like in here. What I'm concerned about is this part that's sticking out beyond the other shapes that I made. All right, so I'm just going ahead and doing exactly what I did with the other ones. After I create this path, as long as I have my anchor points and I have these handles that I can move, then I can modify this. And you know what? It's okay. I mean, it's kind of okay here. I could probably do 3 separate ones. In fact, let's do that. Let's do that. I don't like what I'm doing here. Let's try again. Let's do 3 separate little shapes here. Closed paths. I'm just trying to get this little bit in here. Doesn't matter so much. I know this part here that I'm making right now that's overlapping these shapes. I'm going to send it to back. So does it matter really what that looks like if I'm concerned with what's sticking out? But the main thing is I want a closed path so that I can fill it with color. And I have control over where that color is going. Right? So I'm going to the direct selection tool, and then I can, I can refine this. I can modify it a bit. All right. All I really am worried about is what it looks like in the part that this part is going to be sticking out. Let's go back here again. Okay. So those are kind of, there's 3 little shapes there, but I'm going to lift and select all 3. Then I'm going to choose the color fill. I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm picking colors that you can see the difference. How about yellow or something? All right, and then I think maybe I'll remove the stroke from these. And I'm going to send a click on your mouse, choose arrange the back. Okay, if we turn the differences off, you can see that we're getting something going on here. Maybe we want to get rid of this stroke, or maybe we're going to change this to a different color. Maybe we'll change it to a different weight or something. Go in the strokes menu, change it to something else. Maybe not. It's a matter of playing around with this and seeing what you think looks nice. All right, so this creature had antennas and stuff. Rather than recreate those antennas, let's pretend that I'm making this from scratch and I, made these antennas, but I'm going to borrow them from the previous illustration because these are just fine. Let's come back in there. They're already behind here, so that's okay. So you see how these were created. These were drawn earlier than these. I just drew these. So these are sitting on top of this one. Whatever you draw later is going to sit on top of the thing that you drew earlier. So these are kind of like back here, like I can hide these back here. So let's just leave those alone. Maybe I'll change the color of them or something. Maybe they're that color. All right, and then we've got these little circles in here. And just for the, there's this shape here. Let's see, is this a closed path? That is a closed path. So we can I'm going to bring that to front. Arrange, bring to front. That'll sit on top. Right now I'm just kind of from memory, but we had something like that. This creature has some kind of shape like that. So let's stick that on there. And we'll change that. And now we're starting to get some, some of these little circles in here I think we can use because they're closed paths. So, I can select all these, move them over here. Well, they're going behind there. So let's right click, choose a range. Let's stick those in there. Change those, the color of those. Maybe we'll take the now look at this. If we have a stroke and a fill on these. You can see when these are selected that there's a stroke here. If I take stroke and make it none, notice how they get a lot smaller. Now, why is that? The reason is because when you put a stroke on a path, it will take the weight of that stroke and make it and distribute it evenly on both sides of the path. So it's making the shape appear wider than you might want it to be. So like again, if I put a stroke on it, let's say I put a 4-point stroke on it, look how big those get. So one way you can avoid that, first of all, is just put the stroke at none, and then you'll have the actual diameter, or you'll have the actual shape of the object. It won't expand that. Or if you want a stroke on that, like let's say you want to put a different color on it, but you want the shapes to appear to be the same size and not look wider, you can choose to align stroke. So you can see that by default, by this icon here, it's showing a stroke weight is going to be distributed on either side of the path. Maybe we want to distribute it or align it to the inside. It's called align it to the inside. So let's do that. We could align it to the outside. We've got all kinds of options here. So it's worth exploring the stroke menu when you're working these filled strokes. So let's make those little bubble things some other color. All right. And now we're starting to get some kind of a, quote unquote, beautiful object. We want to play with the gradient. So we have our little gradient tool here. And we can put a gradient on there by clicking on this. This is a linear gradient where it goes, kind of in a straight line from one color to another. This is kind of muddy looking. We can change the color in here. So let's, instead of black, let's drag this out. So let's go ahead and go back to gradient. Let's drag this tab away so it stays open when I select something else. So, oops, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of trying to position these windows in a way that makes sense. So let's go ahead and grab the swatches menu, and we can find a color in here. Remember that you can go to the swatch libraries and find colors. Actually, let's do that. Let's go, I don't know, how about nature? Let's try foliage. We've got some pre-color palettes here, for like nature, plant kind of colors. Let's go ahead and I'm going to just sort of randomly choose these to put in this little, it's like a little inkwell here. So we can swatches that way just by clicking and dragging on, we could change the gradient colors by clicking and dragging on some swatches and dragging them into, I'll call these like little color wells here. Like if we want to change this color on the left-hand side, we can, just pick a color and drag it in there. So we got some gradients. We've got some controls here, like we can make a wheel blend, where the gradient radiates from the middle, and you can play around with this stuff. Where does the gradient? Where do the colors start? There's a lot of options that you're able to experiment with. There's nothing for this particular project. This is more of creativity and exploring some options rather than a specifically right or wrong solution. So it's a good idea to explore. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some ideas of how to approach filling your contour line drawings with color and applying strokes to them.